Hello everyone, today I'm back with another collection video. Now you may recall that a few weeks ago I made a room tour video on this channel. Please go and watch that if you haven't already. But in that video I neglected my DVDs, I didn't show my DVD collection, and as I explained in the video, the simple reason for that is that my DVD collection isn't stored in my room, it's actually stored downstairs in the living room. The reason for this is because I share a room with my brother, and there's simply not enough space for me to store my DVDs there as well. So when we actually got this house initially, I made sure that I invaded the DVD cabinet and managed to acquire a couple of shelves myself to store all my DVDs on, to make sure they had somewhere to go. But nevertheless, I still wanted to show them off, and people in the comments in that video were saying, can we see your DVD collection as well? So here we are, yep. I'm going to start off with Doctor Who, might look at the spin-off ones a bit later on, and I'll give my opinion on each episode and pull them out and show the cover, all that kind of malarkey. So, without further ado, let's get started with the beginning box set, which is here. Now I actually watched the first two stories in this box set, most recently with my granny over the summer holidays last year, because I went to go and stay with her and she told me to bring some Doctor Who DVDs, so I thought why not take the very first few stories. So I've seen An Unearthly Child and the Daleks twice. I've not got round to rewatching The Edge of Destruction yet. So An Unearthly Child, yeah, quite a strong start really to the programme, obviously. I mean, the first episode definitely. The latter parts are a little bit wishy-washy, but it's not actually as bad as some people say it is, I don't think. The Daleks obviously is much stronger really. I mean, a great solid story from Terry Nation. A little bit of a shame that quite a few of his later Dalek stories were a bit of a rip-off off this one, but more on that later. And then The Edge of Destruction, like I say, I've not watched this one in a while. It's a bit odd, isn't it, from what I can remember. Yeah, not a massive fan of it, but who knows, maybe when I rewatch it that might change. So aside from the beginning box set, I don't actually have that many Hartnell stories. I have the Dalek Invasion of Earth, again a very good Terry Nation Dalek story. Nice it didn't come to Earth, obviously, because last time they were on Skaro. Yeah, I should probably give this one a bit of a rewatch as well. But great visuals in particular and direction in this one. And then The Web Planet, which, yeah, it's 6 parts long. And, well, a bit like The Edge of Destruction really, it's a bit strange, to say the least. Maybe if I rewatch this sometime my opinion might change. But yeah, not the strongest Hartnell story, I don't think. And I do actually have a copy of The 10th Planet, because obviously I wouldn't have been able to do a top 10 Regeneration stories video if I didn't, but that's actually on my Regeneration box set, which I will come to later. So next up is Troughton, The Power of the Daleks, last year's great animated release. Watched this one, well, a few months ago now, and yet a very good, solid Dalek story again. Quite traditional Doctor Who, I mean 6 parts, but not too boring or tedious, unlike some of the 6-parters that I've seen. Yeah, obviously the animation is very good. Not as good as having the proper version, but probably never going to get that. But yeah, nice to have this in animated form, and just a great Doctor Who story really. And then next up, The Underwater Menace. I think this one is really, really underrated, I have to say. I mean, yeah, it's not great, and 2 episodes of it are missing. But I watched this all together, binge-watched all 4 parts, well, about a year ago, I suppose, and I didn't really mind it, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, like I say, the costumes and some of the sets and things aren't too great, but the story, I mean, it's quite melodramatic, the story, and the villain, quite panto, I suppose. But yeah, it was good fun, quite entertaining, and I might consider doing a defending video on this at some point in the future, like that one, the Moosed one I'm talking about doing about Love and Monsters. Next up is The Ice Warriors, a very strong Doctor Who story again. Not as strong as, well, I don't think I'd say it's as strong as The Seeds of Death, but a good introduction for the Ice Warriors, definitely. They're a different type of story. I mean, it's based on The Siege, quite a good classic Doctor Who based on The Siege story, I would say. And then The Seeds of Death itself, the next one actually, here. Yeah, I watched this very recently. A great 6-part Doctor Who story, very kind of tense, gripping, much more global than the previous Ice Warriors story, their introduction. Yeah, like a massive Ice Warrior invasion on a global scale, basically. So yeah, that one's great fun. Very good cast, very strong story. And that's it for my 60s DVDs. I don't actually have that many of them really. I must do something about that in the future. But probably, well, part of the reason why I don't have too many 60s stories is because I've got so many Jon Pertwees. I've absolutely immersed myself into this era, in the process of doing so at the moment. Not quite seen all of his stories, but most of them. I mean, take season 7 for instance, his first series. It's just absolute perfection. Doctor Who at its best, really is. 4 really great stories. Spearhead from Space is a fantastic introduction for the Third Doctor, and for Doctor Who in colour, for the whole new era. I mean, the Autons are just great. Aside from the kind of the way that you can see some of the skin underneath the mask, you can tell it's a mask, but that doesn't really detract from the effect of them. And unlike the other season 7 stories, this one has only 4 parts, so it's not as long. The story is quicker, the pace of it's quicker, and maybe some of the other season 7 serials could have benefited from that because they are all 7 parts long. But yeah, Spearhead from Space, a really great story. And then here, Doctor and the Silurians, the next one up. Again, a very good story, although having seen the Series 5 Silurian 2-parter before I saw this, I did find it quite similar to that. I mean, looking at the story in its own right, it's not bad by any means, and doesn't really detract from its greatness, really. But I can't help but think, really, that the Seasons 5 2-parter, although some people say it's a bit of a rip-off of this story, I think it took the whole concept of the Silurians further, and kind of did it more justice than this story did. So, yeah, not the strongest Silurian story out there, but as kind of to introduce the concept of the Silurians. And then next up, The Ambassadors of Death, another really underrated story in my opinion. I'd probably say this is my favourite from season 7. I just found it gripping from start to end, really. I mean, I know some people say it's a bit boring, not the best story of this season, the weakest one, but yeah, I can't put my finger on it, really. I couldn't tell you right now what it is that I like about it, but it was just a great watch. Really great characters and situations, and kind of splitting up with the main cast and all the different stuff that happened in the story. It's absolutely fantastic in my opinion, and nobody will tell me otherwise. And then Inferno, the season finale. I find this one a bit overrated on the flip side, probably because I'm more used to the parallel worlds and universes and all that kind of malarkey these days, because I'm a regular viewer of New Who. But yeah, I suppose it's a good story, but a bit like the Silurians, I suppose, I just found it a bit repetitive, a bit kind of, it doesn't really go anywhere with the concepts, and of course, compared to New Who episodes where I've seen these concepts explored a bit further, I suppose that's why I don't quite view these stories as highly as some other fans might do. Moving on to season 8, which I've also got the entirety of, we've got Terror of the Autons, another great Auton story. I'd probably say that Spearhead is the best, I think, out of the 2, but this one is notable for introducing the Master, and yeah, I mean, he's magnificent in this story, the standout element, and also Jo Grant as well, who I really like. So yeah, a good, strong season opener, I'd say. The Mind of Evil, another underrated story. I mean, there are so many greats in season 7 and 8, and early Pertwee in general, but I think this one is really quite something. I mean, again, I watched this one pretty quickly, not all in one go, but like other underrated stories, in my opinion, this one's just gripping, and there's something about it that just really hooks me, about the plot and the characters, and Master up to no good. It's great fun, this one. And then The Claws of Axos, midway through the series. I'd probably say this one's a little bit overrated. It's not quite as good as I expected it to be. For some reason I always thought this one was 6 parts, not 4, I don't know why. Maybe it would have benefited from being a 6-parter, I don't know really. But yeah, I mean, it's good fun, I suppose. It's a nice Doctor Who story. Nothing bad about it in particular. Just not as great as I'd kind of perceived it as before I'd watched it for the first time. Colony in Space. Again, I quite like this one, underrated I think, really. Nice to have an alien planet in the Third Doctor era for the first time. And yeah, it's quite a long time since I watched this one. But yeah, I do find it underrated. Great dynamic between the Doctor and the Master, in particular with the TARDIS circuits and all that kind of stuff. And then the season finale, The Daemons. I'd probably say this one's a little bit overrated as well, but I should probably rewatch it someday really, because it's a long time since I saw this one. But I do like the bit at the end where the Master gets taken away, and Azal is a good villain as well. Now on to season 9. Day of the Daleks. Again, I've not seen this one for quite a while really. A little bit boring because, like other stories, you know, the Silurians and what was that other one? What was the other one I was talking about? Inferno as well. Yes, like those two. We're used to time travel parallel universes these days, so as a new viewer looking back at this one, it doesn't quite stand out as much to me. But it is still a very good story. I particularly like the villain in this one. I can't quite remember his name, but that guy that's working with the Daleks, he was well written, I thought. The Curse of Peladon, the most recent classic story that I've actually seen, you know, fully. Yes, I mean, I thought this one, again, was a bit overrated, not quite as interesting. I mean, I found the politics in it, you know, the subtext of politics, I found that quite in your face really. It's generally accepted as being quite subtle, but I found it a bit in your face, unfortunately. I mean, it's nice to see the Ice Warriors not being the villain for once, and there was some good dynamic, good writing, good character moments with Joe and, what's his name, the King of Peladon, but not quite as great, I don't think, as, you know, it's generally perceived to be. On the other hand, the Sea Devils, I really like this one. I don't quite know, again, really, what it is that I like about it. It's got the Doctor, the Master, the Sea Devils, and kind of that marine army sea setting. There's just something about that, you know, the little island where the Master's being kept, and the island where there's that old base that the Sea Devils are using. There's just something about it that the image of that is one that I quite like. I couldn't tell you why, again. But yeah, it's a very good Doctor Who story. Not quite as good as the Silurians, I suppose, in the way that it deals with the Sea Devils as being Homo Reptilia, if you like. But in other aspects, a very strong kind of thriller of a story, really. Now on to Season 10, Carnival of Monsters is a story that I watched quite recently, and it's another underrated one, I think, really. A good Robert Holmes classic, I would say. I found the Drashigs quite scary, to be honest. Genuinely, honestly, quite scary. And this chap and his assistant, well, yeah, I mean, they're a bit kind of weird, I suppose. The costumes in particular. But I quite enjoyed their little dynamic, and how it kind of sets up that as a subplot with the futuristic alien guys, and has the Doctor and Joe land on that boat in the 1920s, or so it may seem. I liked how that happened, and the surprise was kept back until the first cliffhanger. I did see it coming because it's quite a famous cliffhanger, but still, you know, it works really well, and a good 4-part solid Doctor Who adventure, I would say. On to the Dalek War box set now. I watched these ones quite recently again, in sequence together. Frontier in Space. Wow, what a story. I don't know why more people don't like this one, because I think general consensus is that Planet of the Daleks is better. It's the best one of the two. But this one I found gripping from start to end. The Master, the Doctor, the two sides of humans and Draconians, it's just thrilling stuff. Really interesting. The politics of it all. You know, unlike with Peladon, I kind of found the politics of this one not in your face. You know, it's quite subtle but interesting, and it's distance from Earth politics, I feel. Maybe because of all the EU referendum stuff that's so kind of current at the moment. Maybe I found Peladon a little bit in your face for that reason. But here, yeah, I mean, just viewed out of its context as a standalone adventure, really great stuff. There's a wide range of locations in this story, and different spaceships and all sorts of stuff. Because also, that's the other thing, unlike lots of other 6-parters, location changes every episode or every 2 episodes. So it's very varied, I think. Planet of the Daleks. Yeah, remember when I was talking about the Daleks being ripped off by future Terry Nation serials? Well, here we go. I mean, it's basically just the same story, really, isn't it? The Invisible Dalek stuff, it's a nice addition, but not really maximised to its full potential. As is this guy here, the Supreme Dalek. I was waiting for him to appear throughout the whole kind of first 5 parts, and finally in part 6 he arrives, but he's barely used. I mean, what a great design of a Supreme Dalek. He's wasted, in my opinion. You know, he should have come in earlier. It's so boring, really, this one. I mean, there are some nice character moments, nice speeches and bits and bobs, and bits that have been quoted often in the centuries since and become famous Doctor Who quotes. But as a story, it just doesn't really hold together as well, in my opinion, as this beauty over here, Frontier in Space. What a great story. And then these last ones here I've just taken out because they can't come past the end of the cabinet here. So we have The Green Death. Yes, I need to rewatch this one, I think, because, well, it is a good story from my memory, but I saw it quite early on in, you know, the context of the whole of Classic Who that I've seen. But yeah, a very good story, a good departure for Jo, quite New Who in a way, in the way that it handles her exit. You know, it's quite a mature choice for her to leave the Doctor, I think. The Time Warrior, yeah, a great story, this one. A great introduction for Sarah Jane Smith and the Sontarans. The unmasking at the end of part 1 is just fabulous, you know, it really is. And I didn't expect all the stuff, you know, that tied in with the modern day contemporary setting as well, with scientists going missing. It was great how that was woven into the adventure, because I always kind of thought of this one as it's a medieval story with Sontarans and Sarah Jane, but it kind of exceeded my expectations, I suppose, really. Yeah, a really good story. The Monster of Peladon, the first one that we've come across today that I've not seen yet. It's on my watch list, so yeah, I'll probably get around to seeing it at some point during the Easter holiday. Maybe comment below what you think of that one to let me know, to warn me, or not, I don't know. And then Robot, the 4th Doctor's first adventure. As I said in my top 10 post-generation stories video the other week, it's quite average, isn't it, really? I mean, it doesn't stand out in my memory as being really great. I mean, the robot is a good design, nice addition to the story. I suppose it all revolves around him, really, doesn't it? And Regeneration, the 4th Doctor. But yeah, this one doesn't stick in my memory too much, unfortunately. Now onto the second shelf. I'll just remove this New Beginnings box set so I can get to these ones at the end here more easily. So continuing with the 4th Doctor's era, The Ark in Space. I find this one quite overrated again, really, like many of the classics that I own. I mean, the classics, that is. The classic as in a great story regarded by fans, because this one is. But, I don't know, it doesn't really do it for me. It's quite typical of Doctor Who, quite average in that it doesn't really push the boundaries much. Yeah, maybe my opinion of it might change upon rewatch, but I don't think so. It's just, yeah, it's not my thing, I don't think. Sontaran Experiment was interesting because it's a two-parter, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, a nice change, definitely, because we don't really get many two-parters after the 60s. There is the odd one, I suppose. But another good Sontaran story. The Dartmoor location isn't too convincing as post-war Earth, somehow in the future. But anyway, Genesis of the Daleks. Wow, what a story. This one has made my top 10, as you all know if you've seen that video. I mean, it's just amazing, isn't it, really? Great with Davros and the Daleks, and all the kind of moral debates and questions, and all sorts of stuff in this one. It's really juicy, a great watch, really, if you haven't seen it. I think, actually, that this was my first classic DVD. I remember getting it in WH Smith's, with some kind of voucher. I think I had a £5 or £10 voucher, and so I picked this up instead of picking up something to do with New Who, which I suppose was quite significant back then because it was like 2009 maybe, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I mean, I didn't appreciate it quite as much when I was a child, when I was younger on, but definitely now that I'm older and having rewatched it, it's just a great story. There's so much in it, and unlike Planet of the Daleks, basically a rehash of the Daleks, this is new. It introduces Davros and the creation of the Daleks, and that, I think, is why it's so successful. It's so different from any other Dalek story that we'd seen to this point. Terror of the Zygons. A little bit overrated, I'd say, although I do need to rewatch it probably. I mean, I last saw it quite a while ago. A typical Doctor Who story, really, quite traditional, I suppose, really, in that it's an alien invasion of a small town or village. Yeah, I need to rewatch this one, I think, because I don't remember too much about it, and it's one of those stories that I saw quite a while ago, too long ago, really. Pyramids of Mars, yeah, what a story. Really great. A bit confusing, I will say, with all the time stuff and pyramids and Mars and all the rest of it. I mean, visually, it's a very visually striking, scary story, I think, with Sutekh and the mummies and all the rest of it. Yeah, a great story. Seeds of Doom, another really good, strong Doctor Who story by Robert Banks Stewart. A nice kind of shift in location from the Arctic bits and bobs to the old house. The name of it escapes me, but that's nice. Like in Frontier, how I was saying that the location changes regularly in that 6-parter. It's nice that halfway through this story the location changes in a similar way, which I think is a good way of utilising the 6-part format, really. The Robots of Death. I found this one in a charity shop years ago. I need to rewatch it really because I've not seen it since, I don't think. And as a result of that, you know, yeah, I don't think I really appreciated it at the time to its full potential, because it is regarded very highly by fans. I mean, it's good, I suppose, it's not bad in particular, but like Terror of the Zygons, it's one that I just need to see again really, to appreciate it properly. Image of the Fendel. I saw this at a similar time, I think. I was possessed to buy this because I was buying the Image of the Fendel figure set from BBC Shop, so I thought, oh, buy the episode on DVD as well, just so I know what it's about, you know, a bit of context. Quite confusing, I found it really, initially, but again, it's one that I need to rewatch, I think, maybe, I don't know. It's a bit weird, this one, but maybe a rewatch might help. The Sunmakers is another story that I got quite recently. I found this in an old DVD shop, but it was in pretty good condition, only about £1.50 I think, so, you know, no complaints there really. Not seen it yet, so again, maybe in the comments let me know what it's like, because I'll be watching it pretty soon, I suppose. The Invasion of Time. Wow, what a mess of a story. I mean, the Sontarans, just why? The whole thing at the start with it looking like the Fourth Doctor's the villain, it sort of works, but it kind of falls a bit flat during the latter parts really. And the whole bit at the end with the TARDIS corridors is just a joke really, isn't it? I mean, not Doctor Who at its finest, unfortunately. Destiny of the Daleks. Another one which isn't really Doctor Who at its finest, I would say. I mean, the locations used for Skaro, they have like little old ruined houses on them, you know, the ruins of houses and little stone houses. I don't know how they ended up on Skaro. I mean, I was recently reading that weird theory stuff about how, because Skaro is destroyed in Remembrance, how it might be a different planet or something, and that during all the subsequent stories after a certain point, it was that planet, so maybe that explains it, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the vacuum form Daleks aren't great, the Skaro locations aren't great, the story's alright I suppose, the Movellans are interesting, slightly laughable really. Yeah, it's not a great story in my opinion. City of Death on the other hand, yeah, wow, great story. I've rewatched this one perhaps the most out of all the classic DVDs I own really, just because it's so good, it's so funny, such a strong plot, interesting, radical for the time, you know, timey-wimey, all that kind of stuff. It's all there, you know. City of Death has got it all really. It's a quintessential Doctor Who story, and one that you really should see if you've not seen many classics, or if you've not seen this one already anyway. And another Douglas Adams story. What a shame that we never got to see the completed version of Shada, but it's worth buying. It's in the Legacy box set, I think it's called, isn't it? The Legacy box set, yeah, that's right, with the More Than 30 Years documentary. But it's worth watching. There's a little reconstruction with Tom Baker doing some slightly weird linking bits and starting and ending bits, but yeah, it's worth watching definitely because of that, and the bits that are actually filmed are quite good really. I mean, yeah, it's a shame that we didn't get to see this one completed. I mean, if it had been completed, I don't think it would be quite so highly regarded as City of Death, but still another very good, strong Douglas Adams story, definitely. Now looking at the New Beginnings box set. A pretty strong box set really, a pretty good trilogy of stories. Firstly, we have The Keeper of Traken. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, I suppose, but that's 80s Doctor Who for you, really, isn't it? Yeah, not great, but alright. Logopolis. Yes, this one is slightly better, really. I've seen this one quite a few times, both on the Regeneration box set and as part of this trilogy, viewing them all together. Good stuff with the Master and the Watcher, and all sorts of other things. The whole kind of, well, the concept of Logopolis, the planet, is a bit weird. The whole thing with the radio telescope and everything is a bit weird as well, how the whole universe will end because all the Logopolis people have been destroyed and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's alright. Probably better than Traken, I suppose. Castrovalva actually is the best in this set, though, I would say. A great post-generation story, like I've said in my most recent top 10. I love all the kind of stuff that links to the optical illusions with all the weird walkways and upside down bits and bobs and sideways. it's great, and it really fits the tone of an adventure where the Doctor is confused because he's suffering from trauma after his recent regeneration. And obviously the Master showing up again is just a very welcome decision, really. A good choice to have him kind of linking all these 3 stories together, I would say. The Visitation, more 5th Doctor. Alright, I suppose. I suppose it's quite a good historical story, really, with aliens thrown in there. With the whole link to the Great Fire of London. A little bit kind of weird. I quite like this guy, Richard Mace. I suppose he's got the same name as me, but also just because he's an interesting character. Bit of a thesp, I suppose. And, yeah, he's a nice character in the story. The Pterodactyls are alright, I suppose, as well. And like I say, it's pretty good historically, from a historical perspective. The 5 Doctors, on the other hand, is a very strong 5th Doctor story, and Doctor Who story in general, really. Again, it's one that I saw quite early on in my exposure to classic Doctor Who. So I've rewatched it quite a bit, and I really appreciate it to its full potential now, because I've seen it so much. Yeah, a pretty solid story, really. Not too kind of fan-servicey, good plot, yeah. And nice to see the first 5 Doctors, or not, Tom Baker, but what can you do, together, really, yeah. Warriors of the Deep, yeah, it's a bit meh, really. Not a great Silurian or Sea Devil story. Nice as a base Under Siege story, I suppose, but kind of slightly kind of traditional and typical and all the rest of it. Not too radical, really. I suppose though it's good because all the guest cast die. So, that's quite different and strange and unusual, really. Resurrection of the Daleks. He's alright, I suppose. Yeah, I watched one quite recently, really. And yeah, nice stuff with Daleks and Davros and that guy that betrays the Doctor at the end of part 1. Because it's an interesting format, because it's 2 45-minute episodes, unlike the other ones in the season, I believe. I believe it was an experiment or something, wasn't it? Yeah, a nice Dr. Davros Dalek story, really. No complaints, nothing really bad about it. Attack of the Cybermen. One that I need to see again, really. I need to rewatch it. But from what I remember, it's okay. A little bit kind of comic, laughable. I mean, these Cryon people and the weird bulging head of the cyber controller. Yeah, a little bit slow, I suppose, as well, at the pace of the story. But it's alright, I guess. But yeah, I should probably rewatch it quite soon, because I am actually going to go and see Colin Baker at Morecambe Comic Con in like a few weeks now. I should also probably get round to finishing the 2 Doctors. I tried part 1 of this one, because I got it with all the other Sontaran stories like 2 years ago in the Bread for War box set, and I tried part 1 and it just didn't do it for me, unfortunately. I found it so slow, so boring. The Sontarans are just laughable, the costumes, the heads is just shrivel. But yeah, I'll probably rewatch it ahead of seeing Colin Baker, just because, for no other reason, really. Maybe my opinion of it will change, maybe it's changed over the intervening months, but I don't know, really. The Trial of the Time Lord. Yes, I bought this specially so I could watch them all and show them to all my family members in preparation for our visit to the Comic Con to meet Colin Baker. I've only actually watched the first 2 parts so far, but the general consensus between me and my mum and dad is that it's pretty good, really. And Colin Baker, yeah, he's alright in this. I mean, he's not a bad Doctor by any means. Quite funny, quite witty, quite sarcastic, I suppose, as well. Looking forward to completing this, because it looks like a pretty good story. Probably the strongest thing to come out of the 6th Doctor's era, but we'll see. I've not seen it all yet, so I can't make that statement, really. Remnants of the Daleks, another one that I've seen loads and loads, because it's just so good, isn't it? I got this very early on again, and yeah, rewatched it loads. It's just a very strong Doctor Who story. The music in it is fab as well, it's top class, isn't it, really? Well, yeah, I'm being a bit silly here. It's slightly strange, but I guess it suits the 80s era, doesn't it? The Special Weapons Dalek here is just awesome, and all the Dalek War and the different factions. Yeah, it's really, really juicy. Great stuff, I would say. The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. alright, a little bit strange, but again, I need to rewatch this one really because, not like many other stories in my collection, yeah, it is a bit weird, ultimately, but probably not quite as bad as I remember it. I mean, I don't remember it badly, but in particular, just not great, not standout great. Oh, Battlefield, I love Battlefield. The story behind this is, basically, I was going to lunch somewhere with some family friends and my granny, and it was in Hambleton, the place we were going for lunch, which is a Rutland Water area. I thought Rutland Water, oh, that sounds a bit familiar, so I looked it up, and obviously it's the location for Battlefield, for the lake, and the hotel place where the Doctor and Ace go. So then I thought, having visited the location, I better go and buy the DVD of this one, and I was really pleasantly surprised. It's a great Doctor adventure. Really underrated. I mean, it just so is. I would defend this to my last breath. It's a bit camp, I suppose, a little bit panto, but it's got the Brigadier and Merlin, and well, not Merlin himself, but characters from the Merlin kind of franchise, if you like, and the legends and stories. This guy's a bit underused, I suppose, but Morgaine, she's great. The Doctor's great. Ace is great. The Brigadier is great. It's a fantastic story. You should really go and watch it if you haven't already. Definitely. Ghostlight. Yeah. What actually is this? I mean, what were they thinking at the time? Because I've seen the documentaries, and even the cast didn't understand this story. I mean, I'm still clueless myself. What is it about? What is it trying to say? How does this thing that it calls itself a plot? How does it hang together? I don't know. This is a mystery to me, this story. It really is. I mean, someone explain it to me in the comments, please. I'm lost. Yeah, but seriously though, this is just a really strange story. I don't know what they were thinking, and yeah, really odd. I'll just leave it at that. The Curse of Fenric is a little bit kind of convoluted, I think. There's a lot going on, definitely, and I'm not too sure it works quite as well as it could have done. But there's some interesting visuals, I suppose, with the Haemovores and the Seventh Doctor and the rest of it. It's okay as a story. I probably would rewatch it to get my head around it, if nothing else. It's not quite as convoluted as Ghostlight, but slightly kind of going towards that direction, really. But still an alright story, I suppose. Survival, on the other hand, is great. Really good. Classic story from Rona Munro. I'm really excited to see what she's got in store for her Doctor Who Series 10 episode in the new series. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that Doctor Who had to end here because it's a great story. I mean, if Rona had done more back in the day, then she would have saved the series, I suppose. But I mean, her stories are great. Yeah, and Ben Aaronovitch, I suppose, as well, and Andrew Cartmel. The team of people that they could have just made Doctor Who work, I think, but alas, it wasn't to be. The show was taken off air, and yeah, the rest is history. Scream of the Sharka came out of the Wilderness Years right at the end. Animated short story episode thing. I think it's 6 parts, isn't it? And it's a bit weird, really. I mean, I watched it recently when I was ill at home off school. I thought I got this ages ago. I've never watched it, and yeah, I mean, I wasn't really missing out on much, to be honest. I'll just leave it there. Not great, quite confusing, weird dialogue, weird story. Yeah, weird Doctor as well, in the form of the Sharka Doctor. More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS is a nice little thing, really. A documentary, sort of. It's kind of got live action film bits with this little dude here, and all sorts of monsters, and recreated bits and bobs. It was made during the Wilderness Years in 1993, and yeah, it's a good bit of fun, really. Yeah, a nice little documentary, definitely. Clearly a labour of love, as it were. And then here I have my New Who series collection, every single one, all the original releases apart from Series 7, because, well, I just never got around to getting that one. I got the newer one, reissue version instead. A couple of my bits at the end there, Figure Adventures, Genesis of the Cybermen, Dying of the Light, they're there. But yeah, I won't pull these out. I am actually planning on doing a top 10 series video once Series 10 of Doctor Who has aired, so I'll save my opinions on these series for later on. But I will say that I am a New Who person, really. I mean, I don't really get on well with the whole of the Russell T Davies era and particular episodes, but overall, I mean, to look at how much the writers have achieved, RTD and Stephen Moffat and everybody else, to think that after the Wilderness Years came this, all of this stuff, it's a weird thought. And yeah, I mean, it's a great achievement, New Who, I think, as a whole. And I think some people take it for granted a bit, really. And Moffat and RTD, they get lots of hate, but really we should be thankful to them, because the show wouldn't be here in its current state, well, probably in any state at all, without their input. And yeah, New Who, a great set of seasons and episodes, is, yeah, great. And to finish off, I'll just show you a couple of bits that go up here. Dreamland. Oh god, the animated Doctor Who stories. Yes, joys. Yeah, it's better than the Infinite Quest, I think, but not kind of stand out special, really, unfortunately. Yeah, the Infinite Quest, this one's just a bit strange. I mean, I think it's 45 minutes, quite a wide variety of locations and characters and things going on, but again, it doesn't really stand out to me, and it's not great animation. It's basically the Comic Maker, isn't it? That's the same sort of stuff. So yeah, unfortunately, the animated specials and bits and bobs aren't too great in my opinion. And then the Regeneration set to finish off, last but not least. I got this on my birthday many years ago now, really. Well, the year it came out, 2013 I suppose. It's a bit of a pain that I've got to go back and get the individual releases of each classic story in this box set, because that's how I am, you know. Nowadays I like to have all the classic episodes in each case, but it's still a really nice piece of merchandise to have nevertheless, and I suppose I'm just lucky that I got it for my birthday, and it's just one of those things that I got, you know, a few years ago. Didn't have to pay anything for it, and even though I am having to go back and buy the Regeneration stories individually, yeah, it's just really nice to have this piece of merch. Very nice artwork with black and white and bits of colour kind of brought out on each page, one page for each Doctor. Very kind of sturdy book-like thing with the DVDs in the tops. So yeah, the Regeneration set, brilliant stuff. So I think I'm going to end it there because I've been going on for quite a while now. But yeah, there we have it, my Doctor Who DVD collection so far. Obviously I'm still in the process of getting all the classics, watching them all the time and buying them, but I hope you've enjoyed nevertheless my opinions on the ones that I have got and seeing which ones I do own. Any immediate recommendations, I suppose, you can give me in the comments below. I mean, by all means, give me suggestions in the comments. You know, if there are any stories that you've seen and you're thinking, why has he not seen that one yet? I mean, that's a Doctor Who classic. Then tell me. Obviously, I'm going to get them all eventually, and I'm quite focused on the Pertwee era at the moment, but I will consider any suggestions you give me nevertheless. I do have other DVDs. I have Torchwood and Sarah Jane up here, and other bits, Broadchurch, and Big Finish and soundtracks. The soundtrack's just up there. So if you would like to see them in a future video, do let me know. I was sort of kind of half planning on featuring them in this video, but as I say, I've gone on for a long time now. A lot of stuff to kind of edit down and assemble into a video, so I think I'll save that for another viewing experience for you all, another point in the future. But yes, if you want to see my soundtracks and Big Finish collection, then do let me know and I will arrange that for a future video. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. It means a lot to me that you've come this far and listened to all my opinions of these stories. Do give your own opinions of the same stories below in the comments, and we can discuss them and debate them, and I'll see you very soon for more Doctor Who videos. Bye for now, guys.